The Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast is here now with Cody Carpentier, Casey Meyers from the FF Dynasty podcast. Casey, first time on the show. So excited to talk to you. You've been on the PlayerProfiler podcast network. I had to wind up to say that. That was a lot. That was a lot. And so we have a fun show. We're going to talk a lot about where we think these guys are going in the NFL, where it makes the most sense, and therefore how we would value them. We're also going to talk about comparing players from this class to last class, some values, like some players, they've lost some value. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s lost some value. What would you give up for Marvin Harrison Jr.? Would you rather have player X versus Marvin Harrison Jr.? What does the market say? What do we say? There's a lot to talk about here. So we're just going to go through the top guys, and then we're going to run through some of these these guys that are a little bit down the board, down the rankings. Just try to figure out. Let's try to figure out, and maybe we can track it. I'll set up a little sheet, and I'll put our predictions. What makes the most sense as a landing spot for Jalen Knoll? What's the best place for Caleb Johnson to go? And we'll see if we're right. We'll see if we're right. Now, Cody gets to do this for real. Like, there's this proper, huddle contest. Do you do this huddle contest, Casey, where you submit your mock draft?
I do not.
You should.
I'd be interested.
You should do it. Cody will tell you how to apply for that. Theo does it. Cody does it. Alex does it. So I should be doing it. I'll do it. I mean, but I'm just not good. I don't follow this stuff closely. It'd be a waste of time for me to do it. So off we go. Let's talk first about who else to start with but Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty showed up at his pro day, ran around a little bit, a lot of fist pounds, right? A lot of fist pounds, a lot of big hugs. The big oversized, outrageously I'm coming in big and you're coming in big hugs, right? A lot of hugs, a lot of fists. Not a lot of working out necessarily that we're going to be timing that's official. That's the problem with Ashton Jeanty, though it really isn't a problem because I think the numbers and what we saw just from the eye test on the field is going to get him in the top 10. And if a running back goes top 10, it's a wrap. You want him. He's going to be a stud.
Pretty easy too. Pretty easy too. And the Ashton Jeanty thing came out last week. He had his pro day, and man, he didn't run, but he ran around, caught passes.
Right, he ran around.
Did all the running back drills. And I tell you what, man, it had this one thought going through my mind, just like thinking about Ashton Jeanty, because everybody knows the prospect that he is, and we can get into the other backs in the class and talking about the depth of it. But one of the things that I think makes Ashton Jeanty prolific is kind of the same conversation that was around Malik Neighbors last year. And one of my favorite things about the whole process is finding comps and finding different range of outcomes and finding different feels for different players. And a year ago, I found myself with Malik Neighbors, I was like, man, there's a lot of different dudes in him. Like his long speed is kind of Odell Beckham-ish. His contortion ability was kind of Justin Jefferson-ish. He had some, I think Stephon Diggs, a lot of different guys. And it wasn't like, he's distinctly a dude. When you look at Ashton Jeanty, as you see the best comparable on player profilers with Daniel Tomlinson, I was coming to myself this weekend as I'm watching him run around and do his pro day. And I'm thinking to myself, man, there's a lot of different dudes in Ashton Jeanty. There's some Ray Rice in there. You got LT up on the screen. There's some D'Angelo Williams in there. And I'm like, man, it's just like Malik Neighbors. The comp for Malik Neighbors was Malik Neighbors. The comp for Ashton Jeanty, it's not always you get this where it's like, well, the classic, there's no comp for him. Ashton Jeanty's comp is Ashton Jeanty, and I think that's what kind of makes him special.
Yeah, what you were just describing.
Yards.
Yeah.
How about 30 touchdowns?
Yeah, I mean, this is I know everybody seems to get bent out of shape about the generational tag these days, but I mean, just like you said, what you were describing was that old David Montgomery clip that pops up on the screen where they put all the best guys as eyes, feet, whatever. But I mean, it couldn't be more true. I'm not a huge player comp guy, but Ashton Jeanty's just his own dude. I'm with you there.
I mean, Saquon Barkley didn't even have 1,500 yards in college as a rusher. Couldn't even get there. Couldn't even get to 1,500 rushing yards at Penn State. Embarrassing. Embarrassing prospect. I can't believe Saquon Barkley got drafted. Couldn't even get 1,500 rushing yards. Barely got drafted at number 2 overall.
Gettleman's gonna Gettleman, you know.
It's funny. Like, I think this class that he's in, the 2018 class, I think that's a much better comp for the 2025 running back class than the 2017 class. The 2017 class with Fournette and McCaffrey and Aaron Jones and Mixon and just so many players that have been so productive and then productive out into a late age, late into their 20s, where on FastDraft, where, you know, take the flex 4 game, you're drafting 6 guys, top 4 into your lineup, best ball style. Okay. James Conner's still getting drafted. He was in that draft class too. So I think this class, this 2025 running back class, can aspire to be 2027. Sorry. Can aspire to be 2017, but really it's 2018. And Jeanty is maybe a better version of Barkley. Barkley, though, when he came out, he's 233 now. I think when he came out, what was he, Cody, 224? So that's the difference. Barkley's athleticism probably a notch above Jeanty, maybe, but we don't know. That's the thing. Now that he didn't work out, now we can't possibly project him to be like 100th percentile. No one can do that. So now he's going to have to, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, but we're not going to give him Barkley level workout metrics. He's certainly not, like I said, 225. He's a little bit lighter, so he's his own guy. Like you said, he's his own guy. No one can compete with this kind of production, though. The production, oh my God. Oh my God.
Draft capital aside, I'll be honest with you. Like, if you were to say Ashton Jeanty's a better Saquon Barkley, I think you need a little like a bonk on the forehead, right? But to me, it's like a better Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny was the second back off in that class, Mountain West back, right? And the most common spot in mock drafts right now is to none other than Pete Carroll, who, and the history of Pete Carroll in Seattle, the only time he's ever drafted a running back, quarterback, receiver, or tight end in the first round was Rashad Penny in that exact draft. So it's the Mountain West corollary. You got Ashton Jeanty. He's he's a junior, not a senior, where Rashad Penny was. And Penny was mighty prolific at a 2,200-yard season with 25 touchdowns. Like, he's a better version of Rashad Penny. We can say that. But Rashad Penny was also a 220-pound back that ran a 4.46.
What are you even saying? What are you even saying? Like, you're right. I mean, Barkley.
He's not Saquon Barkley.
We know he's not. Well, the thing is, he can't be Barkley, and not because of the size, and not because of the athleticism. Again, we don't know how athletic he is, and that's his own fault. Barkley had a season in college in a major conference program with 54 receptions. Mm-hmm. So Jeanty didn't do that. So that's the one. But he did. See, the thing is, 30 touchdowns in a season. So, I mean, the 2,600 rushing yards, it's just, I could see how there is an argument. There is an argument based on the rushing production, that it offsets a little bit of the size and the receiving skills that Barkley was bringing to the table. I could see the argument. I don't think it requires a bonk on the head. I think it's interesting. I don't think he's going to go number 2 overall because we live in a different era than we did in 2018. But I think it's a lot of people. You know, your colleague at Orange Bloods and Roster Watch included, Alex Dunlap, like, you can't comprehend how silly good this guy is. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Okay. Because I was trying to, steel man the case against Jeanty. And he's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I think the steel man against Jeanty is the rest of the class. And that's where I think you're wrong comparing it to 2018. Because when you look at 2018, I mean, there's more starters in the 2018 class in like UFL right now. Like Kalen Balaj was in that class. Like he was a mid-round pick. Like, and there's nothing there. Darius Geis isn't in the league. Kerryon Johnson should be in the UFL, right? Sony Michel fizzed out. Nick Chubb.
Don't throw Kerryon in there. Kerryon got hurt. He was looking good.
It was good for a minute, but I mean, like Mark Walton was a 4th-round pick. Ito Smith, 4th-round pick. These guys weren't.
They all stunk.
They're not comparable to these 2025 guys, the Jarquez Hunters, the Caleb Johnsons, the Ollie Gordons. Like these are much better profiles overall. And I think this class is just deeper. The upper echelon of talent is more dense. Like the Ollie Gordon I just talked about. He'll go in the 4th round, 5th round, and he's a guy that a year ago people would have said, yeah, he's probably going to be the first running back off the board right next to Travion Henderson before Ashton Jeanty really did this damn thing. But I think the steel man against Ashton Jeanty is saying Omarion Hampton, Quinshon Judkins, and Travion Henderson. And this is the way I explain this class is these 4 guys are in one tier for me. And you could tell me,
well, of course they're in one tier. You think that Jeanty is like I
don't think Jeanty's a
better version of Rashad Penny.
Ooh. I don't. Well, listen, I think he's closer to Rashad Penny than he is Saquon Barkley as a prospect.
Jesus Christ, dude. Listen to yourself.
Listen to myself. I'm talking about a Mountain West back.
This is good. We need this take out there. This take needs to be out there in the universe.
It needs to be. It does. It needs to be reality because Penny was 220 pounds, ran a 4.46 over 2,200 yards, 25 touchdowns at San Diego State in the Mountain West, went 1st round. Right, Jeanty's going to go in the 1st round. Doesn't weigh 220 pounds. He's a borderline midget, and it is what it is.
Yeah, he's
right?
small. Yes, he's small. Went to a small school. He was rolling up on weak
Colorado
competition.
State,
he didn't catch
State.
as many passes as Barkley. He was undersized when he weighed in. Yes.
Listen, I love him.
Yes,
listen, I love him. But the
it.
steel man against it is the fact that Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins are in the same exact tier as him, and that you could tell me in 250 days when the season's going, you could tell me in 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, doesn't matter, that Jeanty's the 4th best of this group, and I would 100% believe you. And nobody wants to hear that. It's just like a year ago, nobody wanted, and last year, like the neighbors Marvin Harrison thing at receiver, and even a Dunze, right? We stayed up at the combine till 3, 4 in the morning, multiple nights, watching all 22 of a Dunze, Neighbors, and Harrison. And you know what the case was? Alex couldn't come off of Harrison. We had this conversation. I was on Neighbors, and Maddie was on a Dunze. And we argued, right? And nobody in the Twitter sphere wanted to hear that anybody could compete with Marvin Harrison Jr. as a prospect, as a player in the league. Nothing. And then it came out, and then Lance Zierlein goes, well, I have him graded as my highest receiver, and then it starts to come out more. And Ashton Jeanty's kind of in the same boat. He's a fantastic prospect. There's no question about it. But Travion Henderson has been that guy for a couple of years now. Omarion Hampton, as Theo will tell you, back-to-back 1,500-yard season, 15-plus touchdowns in the ACC. 5 players have done that ever. Quinshon Judkins, 3 1,000-yard seasons. What's one of the best correlators to breakouts at running back? 1,000-yard seasons. Go look at it. There's only 2 guys in this class, Devin Neal and him. These are really, really, really good running backs. Jeanty just had the most prolific output.
Casey, are you starting to doubt Jeanty now?
No, I have him a tier above those guys. I have Caleb Johnson in that tier with those other guys. I love Caleb Johnson. I think he's great. So you just wanted to give him a little love there. I think
he should get the love.
Seems
Caleb
like there's
Johnson
a little smaller
deserves the
school
love.
bias. Seems like there's a little smaller school bias going on there.
With who?
You know, with Jeanty.
He's not gonna. If he were playing in the SEC, he wouldn't have put up 2,600 rushing yards. That's not going to happen.
Of course, yeah.
374 carries. Not if he was on Ohio State's offense or even Texas.
Yeah.
So that's that. Again, we're really building. We're block by block, brick by brick. We're building this case against Jeanty. I love it. I love it because we did the same thing with Marvin Harrison Jr. last year, and we were right. God, Alex is looking really bad. Have you? How many times have you reminded him about how he stayed up into the night arguing for Harrison? Now Neighbors has lapped him, and there's
right,
no
but
doubt.
That's a 1 year outcome that you're looking at, right? And the target percentage was out of control for Neighbors, and at one point it does come back down. And to have that output again would be, pretty aggressive to have that consistently throughout his year. I'm not saying Neighbors isn't awesome and doesn't deserve everything he has. I'm just saying we could see Marv really come right back up into this conversation and not look like it was that big of a gap in a year's time pretty quickly.
You're okay. So you're buying on Marv right now. You're trying to buy the dip on Marv
for sure. Why? That's just how you play Dynasty, right? Everybody liked this guy. He's down. He stinks because nobody has any patience. You got this redraft mentality in Dynasty now all of a sudden, and nobody. So I'll buy all the Marv I can. Now Marv or Jeanty, I'm taking Jeanty.
Well, yeah. I mean, whoa, for sure. I think the better conversation is, would you rather have Marvin Harrison Jr. or Hampton?
I'm probably still taking Marv.
I got Hampton, and I put Travion
Hampton. You know, we sent Memphis Young, the great Memphis Young from the Dynasty Warzone, to the Combine, and he said that Hampton was the most impressive back there. I mean, that's not a leap. He's the RB2 in the class by most ranking services. Okay. But it is nice when a guy has all the qualities that you're looking for heading into the process, has the production that Cody outlined. Now he goes to the Combine, flashes all the athleticism you want. He checks in, weighs in where we hoped he would, didn't come in light. All these passing all these tests along the way. And then you're standing next to him at the Combine, and Memphis and Cody were standing next to Hampton, and Memphis said they looked over at each other and they were like, well, this guy's built just about perfect. And so that's one of those guys where if Jeanty were not in this class, it's possible that you would have said Hampton just now. But because Hampton is not the RB1, it's like, well, he's not the RB1. I guess I'd rather have Harrison. Harrison has a lot of risk right now, man. Harrison could not separate last year. Look at the target separation on PlayerProfiler. He put Kyler Murray in a very difficult position, just play after play after play. And we'll see. We'll see if he can rediscover what he was at Ohio State. And but it is difficult if you understand air yards for a guy that was number 6 in air yards last year in the NFL. I'm not fading that guy, right? They are the most predictive, overarching stat, non-rate stat, just raw air yards. How often is your team bombing the ball down the field because they want to get you the ball? Right? It's just like, if you have an elite striker, maybe he gets unlucky. Maybe he just doesn't connect for even sometimes a full season. A striker will go through a whole full season and never connect. But you know what? They're constantly bombing the ball into the box to try to get it to that guy. And then you can't be surprised the next year he leads the league in goals. Because he was always that guy, it just didn't work out. Things didn't align right the previous season. That could be what happens with Marvin Harrison Jr., or he's just not that good. It's tough. It's tough stuff, man. I don't know the answer, but I know you want some exposure to him. And if you're like me and I didn't draft any of him in this offseason in Dynasty, you need to be trying to acquire some of him to try to get him on some teams and increase your exposure. So maybe you're not overexposed, but you could at least say, hey, I got 5% Marvin Harrison Jr. because I bought the dip. You're winning, right? You never paid full freight for him. And you could avoid the full freight tag, buy low, get the pop, trade him after a big season if you wanted to, or just ride him into the sunset. You are, I think, no matter how you feel about him, you need to be able to put those biases off to the side and say, I'm a buyer this offseason of Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah. Hey, Cody, let me ask you this. You probably might have a better handle on this than I. The way that Marv was used last year of basically saying, hey, we're going to sit you out wide. You're playing this position. Whereas Neighbors, you're moving them around. You're doing different. You're finding ways to get him the ball different. Petzing just says, hey, we're putting this guy here, and he's running these big boy routes out here. Do you see that as an advantage going into year 2 for Marv, or do you think they move him around a little bit more?
Well, I think they probably move him around a little bit more, but the thing that really was annoying, and I think kind of depressed his output last year, was the fact that, like, it was weird because you would hear them say, like, we have to get Marvin the ball, we have to do this, and he would go out there and have 105 yards and a touchdown the first quarter, and then not get
Right.
targeted the rest of the game. And it's like, when you like, and the same thing happened in New York with Neighbors at times, but then they would find it. You'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to go into this game. His target prop number would be like 7.5, and he'd have 6 in the first quarter, and then you'd be waiting until the fourth quarter before it went 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? And like, that's where I think the Cardinals need to figure out that maybe it was the fact that there's other weapons there, and they have a run game in James Conner and Trey Benson, and they have Michael Wilson, and they like Greg Dortch. I mean, that was Matt. Trashman went to the Cardinals camp last year, and he said Greg Dortch is a better receiver than Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, this is a real thing he said at training camp last year. And that was like, for us, it was like, well, that's not true, but if they're going to treat him that way, you need to kind of adjust, and you need to understand that he's, Marv's not going to get this prolific output. Now, in year 2, I fully expect.
They gave him number 6 air yards in the league.
Yeah, I think he had the fifth in unrealized air yards as well.
And we're talking about potential. We're talking about growth. We're talking about him taking another step forward. And, I'm not calling this guy overrated, never have. My conversation around Marvin Neighbors was always just Neighbors needs to be in the same conversation. And I kind of have the same thoughts around this running back class right now. But as far as Marv goes, like, I 100%, he's a big buyer right now in Dynasty. I would agree with you, Casey. And as far as his usage, I only would bet on it continuing to grow, and those air yards to go up, and the targets to go up, and the receptions to go up, and everything, as well as being used in the slot and on the opposite side.
Targets per route run, target rate on PlayerProfiler, 22%, number 50 in the NFL among qualified wide receivers. Not great, but top 10 in deep targets, top 10 in air yard share and air yards. So the reason why he wasn't being targeted at a high rate is because he was running all these super deep routes. And those are just, those aren't as easy to connect on or to even see if you're a quarterback. Those aren't check down routes that he's running. So
also could be affecting a separation score at the end, right? If you're running a lot of deep routes, it's harder to have a better separation score. Remember, like George Pickens a few years ago, everyone was all over him. He couldn't separate, couldn't do this, but he was just getting spammed down the field. So I don't know if there's how you feel about that, or
and that's also like not how he should be winning in the NFL. He in college, he could do that because he's playing against, he's playing against Big Ten opponents, but they're not week in and week out. You're not talking about guys that are, Pro Bowlers and all pros. And now he's in the NFL. It's a different level. And for a guy that doesn't technically win that way, it's the same thing that's going to be conversed about Ted McMillan. Ted McMillan, whatever 40 you think he ran, he didn't run as fast as people really wanted him to run, and he didn't run near as fast as Marvin Harrison Jr., but he wins downfield in college. He won't be able to win downfield in the NFL. Just like Marvin, it's not his best trait. He's not an AJ Green winning downfield. He'll win more in the, Gabe Davis won a lot downfield, but he'll win, like Gabe Davis can win also across the middle of the field. I'm not comparing Gabe to Gabe Davis.
Let me get this straight. So Ashton Jeanty and Rashad Penny are comparable, and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Gabe Davis.
No, from the route running perspective. Like,
either way,
Gabe is known for winning downfield, but Gabe can also win across the middle, and they're similar stylistic players. I think Marv can also do the same thing, and that's where he should be more focused on. Like, he shouldn't be suppressed to just, like Casey said, spamming him downfield. He should be working across the middle of the field. Those should be more planned routes.
28.6% contested catch conversion rate on Player Profile. That was number 85. So he is either he's such a polarizing player. He's either top 10 in some very important metrics, or he's last.
Right, but to Cody's point a minute ago of like, hey, we got to get Marvin the ball, he'd end up with like 105 and a touchdown in like a quarter. But like, so does it just come down to like, hey, we're just not using this guy properly? When we decide that we're going to get it to him, we get it to him, and then all the other times it's like, what do we do? We're not using this to our best advantage. And to your point, the Cardinals absolutely wanted to play kind of a bully style of football last year. That was James Conner, and that run game was big on what they were, trying to build on, and they rewarded Conner at the end of the season with a little extension there. So that's definitely a brand of football that it seemed like they were trying to bring to Arizona, which also I think was a detriment to Marv's growth year one. Also, where's Kyler's head at year over year on preparation?
Well, the target accuracy from Kyler Murray for
not good
balls thrown in Marvin Harrison Jr.'s direction, 5.8, which was number 92, and again last or close to last, mostly last in a lot of these metrics. It's crazy. It's crazy that you need them to deploy him different. He needs to be used differently. That's the only way to do it. That's what you're hoping for. The reason why you're acquiring some Marvin Harrison Jr. because you do have outs that if they use him properly, this all changes. The target share goes up, the efficiency goes up, everything goes up. But it is interesting that he now isn't the guy that he was sold to be coming out of college, because they used him like he was sold to be. Now they're like, well, no, he's a little more limited. We've got to play him more at Z, and I would play him at Z. Play him at Z and see what happens. But so you can't just put him out there against alpha corners and hope that he wins. They tried that, it didn't work. It's certainly not going to work if they still have Kyler Murray. The other out he has is a new quarterback. That they don't have. So I'd be buying him even more. If he had a new quarterback, then we'd have two outs, right? We'd have the potential role change and the new quarterback. That's part of the case against it, is like, well, there's not the chances of him putting up different numbers, drastically different numbers with the same quarterback, with, James Conner coming back, and it's pretty much, there's a lot of continuity there. It's almost like with Marvin Harrison Jr., it's one of the rare cases where you don't want roster continuity. You would want discontinuity for Marvin Harrison Jr. because you'd want excuses that things could change.
Or not for the buying opportunity. Keep it the same. Let me get in there.
I mean, I think I don't think that most dynasty leaguers are thinking at these levels of ranges of outcomes, that it's like, well, if he did get a different quarterback, we would be all in on him. I don't think that would happen. I think most people just look up and they're like 11.8 points per game. I just also think is trending towards bust.
That to full circle the conversation from my perspective, it's like a lot of rookies don't get put in the position that Harrison was, that, hey, you're just going out here and you're playing this X position. You're not moving. This is what you're doing. Like, nowadays, people are moving people around trying to get the ball in their hands. He's their best player. Like, they just didn't want to budge on any of that. And at times he was able to win against whomever he was playing against, and then at other times he would just disappear. So I still have plenty of faith.
Are they going to draft a receiver, Cody?
Yeah.
Who?
Not early. Not early. I don't think they'll draft one early. I think Arizona has 3 picks in the top 100, but they only have 5 picks overall. I'd bet it more on one of those middle picks where they actually go for a receiver, though.
See, I was a little bit fooled because there's been almost no movement of picks in the first round. I didn't do as much research into how many picks certain teams have. I didn't realize there were teams that had already been like following the New Orleans Saints old playbook where they dump all their picks before the draft, or like, the Patriots, right? That's what the 49ers are doing. The old Patriots, we're going to get 10 plus picks heading into this draft. For some reason, I forgot to look that up because it was like, oh, the first round hasn't changed. There can't be a lot of trades of picks, when it turns out, oh, shit, the Vikings have almost no picks. Then I was like, oh, but they have their first rounder. Yeah, but look a little deeper, Podfather. Wake up, buddy. So I have to admit, I wasn't aware that there were multiple teams out there that were so thin on picks overall. Just because, again, there's, in a lot of these rounds, there's a whole bunch of supplemental picks that are coming in. So you're like, okay, this team's got to have at least 6 picks total. Nope. There's some teams that don't even have 6 picks. And so this is one of those teams where, yeah, they could really use a receiver opposite Marvin Harrison Jr., but because they don't have that many picks, it's unlikely to be a difference maker on day one.
Yeah. That's the Monty Ossenfort, though. If you're talking about general managers, I know you went on and talk about the cap and the general managers and all that stuff on the decision point. You know, Arizona and Monty Ossenfort, what he's done the last couple of years, he's very quickly climbing the general manager rankings. This guy's a complete alpha, and I think he's controlled and sort not as good as Washington, how they've kind of turned everything around, but he's definitely turned around the internal strength of that Arizona organization, where it used to be looked down on as kind of a, I don't know what word I want to use, but not great on the internal side of things.
Oh,
but
so what they've done is they've just dumped their late round picks because they have their first, second, and third rounder.
Yeah. I think they have a first, second, third, and they have a fourth and a fifth. So, but their fifth is pretty late. I think it's
and
like
they have no, and they've traded their compensatory picks. So they're just not getting any.
I don't think they have any.
Oh, okay. That's the problem. Okay. That's where it's a rare thing that you wouldn't have any. So, okay. Interesting. This makes me think now that they have their first, second, and third rounder, now that Marvin Harrison Jr. underperformed and Michael Wilson did not fire and Greg Dortch is Greg Dortch, don't you think that they would at least use a third rounder on a receiver?
I don't think so. I don't think that they'd use a third rounder. Maybe they used the third rounder on Michael Wilson. I wouldn't say Wilson hasn't really fired as much as, I mean, he had 47 catches for 550 yards last year and 5 touchdowns. Like he was never going to be this. He was never going to be a 1. You know, he's a fine 2, probably not an ideal 2 because he hasn't hit that yet. But I think 4th or 5th round is most likely where they end up. You look for a guy that's like a field stretcher, like a Keandre Lambert-Smith who runs a 4.3 from Auburn, a guy that's done it in the SEC, did it at Penn State for 4 years. You look at like a Dante Thornton, a guy that averaged like 19 yards per reception at Tennessee. He's a 4.2 guy, something like this, where it's a 4th or 5th round pick for a field stretcher that can run those deep routes and allow Marv to move around, play in the slot, play flanker, and do these different things. Because I think they like Greg Dortch. I think you can also get some more squeeze out of Michael Wilson in this slot. They also signed Zay Jones. So I think the one sort of piece they're looking for, and they signed Xavier Weaver last year from Colorado, who was sort of a stretch player. He's not at the talent level of either of the guys I just listed off, Keandre Lambert-Smith or Dante Thornton. So I think that's probably the direction they go, is 4th or 5th round. And it's not going to be looked at as something that means a lot, but I think in the same conversation we're having right now, it's going to open things up for Marv.
Imagine if they drafted, let's say, Jaden Higgins, decided to put him at X, have him run all Marv's routes from last year.
Oh my gosh.
Move Marv into like a volume slot flanker role. Get him 150 targets.
I think we're forgetting about Trey McBride. Like I think
that's the WR1 in that offense right now.
Right. No, I know. He's not going to get 150 targets with
I'll be honest with you, if Higgins went to the Cardinals, that'd be terrible.
Terrible. I mean, no, it would be awful for him. But I'm saying there are it's very interesting that there are a bunch of NFL teams that, yes, in the chat, yes, I see you in the chat. Right. That tall guy, in the chat, Michael Wilson is a passable number 2. That is true. We agree. He's a passable number 2. And I wouldn't draft a wide receiver on day 1 or 2 either. Cody knows better to do that. I wouldn't do that. They have other needs. Also, you're not going to get the most out of a guy with Kyler Murray at your quarterback. Right? You're not going to get the most out of a number 2. If you have a pocket passer, right? If you have J.J. McCarthy, or you have Jared Goff, you're going to get the most out of whoever that number 2 is. That's why I think that the Lions should be investing in a number 2 receiver, because they'll get a hell of a lot of that asset with a pocket passer. Kyler Murray, what is he going to do with an upgrade at Michael Wilson? How is he really going to leverage that? He's not going to, but I'm trying to get in the mind of a team, and they're like, well, our wide receiver room is thin. If we're coming into the year with Dortch as our number 3, most GMs are going to think we need to strengthen our wide receiver room. And sometimes it's like, well, we have a need at wide receiver. We're looking at the whiteboard, and Higgins is available, and he's the best player available based on our big board, and he is technically in need, we're going to push the button on him in the middle of the second round. And that would just be, I mean, it's hard. Can you imagine a worse place for him?
Not really.
It's possible, though. There are other teams. What other teams are out there that are in the market for a wide receiver? They perceive themselves to have a need, but if that player went there, if a wide receiver prospect we like do you guys like these Iowa State receivers?
Yeah,
I think they're fine.
Well, you just think they're fine, Cody?
Yeah, I think they're fine. I'm not getting over my skis on them. Like I think both Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins are really good receivers, but I know there's people out there like Alex that say Amon-Ra St. Brown for Jalen Noel, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to run the. I'm one of the things I'm realizing this whole draft process, and I've been through like 7 of them now, but it's like people are so quick to run out the best case scenario. I'm like, I do a show, and like we talk about guys like Tet or Ashton Jeanty, like we have this show, and you'll see people in the comments like literally an hour after the show was done, and they'll go, yeah, for sure. Like, I'm going to go out and skip on drafting Mike Evans. And I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing. Like, this is Drake London. We're just going to go best case scenario with all these guys. And best case scenario for Jalen Noel is he gets drafted in the 3rd round, and people are going to go, well, Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 4th round pick. And Jalen Noel, he's got a
Jalen Noel's
Sharpie
best case scenario was 3rd round.
Right? Huh?
I thought best case scenario for him would be early 2nd round.
I think it'd be a 3rd round pick.
Oh,
maybe late 2nd.
Ooh. Well, I was
Higgins will go round 2.
Yeah, Higgins seems locked in at a 2nd round capital situation.
Well, that's what I thought. But I thought maybe they might even go back to back. I thought teams like both of these guys. When I look at Jalen Noel's profile, it's stellar.
Yeah.
What am I missing? What NFL teams are not seeing what I'm seeing with Noel? What is it that, and they're not seeing what Alex is seeing either? What is the thing that they're concerned about?
It seems like there's a large increase right now on the thought process in Noel currently. Cody, do you not see that right now?
100%. But again, like we said, like Amon-Ra St. Brown had the genetics and had everything coming out of USC, and he fell to the 4th round. Like sometimes these guys just get overlooked, and he played at Iowa State with Jaden Higgins. And the thing is, Jalen Noel had the best Senior Bowl out of any receiver, and Higgins got better as the week went on. But if you look at Higgins, both of these guys had fantastic 1,000-yard seasons this last year.
Yeah.
I think occasionally when you look at Noel, he occasionally has concentration drops. I think he plays. He has a limited play strength, kind of in and out of breaks and against defenders in man and press defenses. A smaller catch radius and relatively small hands. Like I think there's just some things in there. But again, it's like the
29-inch arms. That is. Ooh, look at that.
I'm not going to compare him 6th percentile. Look at that.
Woo.
I'm not going to compare him to Amon-Ra, but at the same time, he's got a good profile. And I think the overarching thing for me in this class is these receivers. And like I said, you said, what do you think of the Iowa State guys? I think they're good. I think he's good. I think Trey Harris is good. I don't think Trey Harris is prolific. I think Torrey Horton's good. I think Alec Amaner's good. I don't think any of these guys are special. Like they're all kind of in that, hate me if you want, Michael Wilson plus area, and Michael Wilson went in the 3rd round.
Ooh.
Well, this was never supposed to be. That's the thing, Casey. This was always, for years, projected to be a relatively weak wide receiver class.
Sure.
This
I think
it's
deep, not great. I think what you're saying is
Marvin
right.
Harrison year. And, Torrey Horton, he runs a 4.4. He put up 1,000 yards 2 consecutive years, 1,100 yards. Right? But it was at Colorado State, and guys like that, they end up being Robbie Anderson, Paul Richardson.
Yeah, I like the shot on Torrey Horton where you can get the value on him. I think he's a pretty solid player. But like you said, Cody, deep class, not a whole lot of top end great, but a lot of good. I'd probably say better than Michael Wilson on a lot of those guys that you named, but especially like the Trey Harrises and the Higgins, maybe Torrey Horton's closer to what Michael Wilson could be, not stylistically, but.
the thing about Wilson is that Wilson probably would have been a second round pick if he didn't deal with so many injuries in college. Like he was a good prospect, he had a great Senior Bowl, great pre-draft process, but he just could never get over the injury bug at Stanford. And and you brought up, I think Trey Harris is looked at among the group I just listed as like the guy that's got kind of some, not the most potential among that group to be like an X, but even that, I think Twitter streets are all ahead on Trey Harris. They all think he's going to be an early second round pick. He's going to go in the third round too. Like the profile, again, he's not a guy that was at Ole Miss for 5 years. He's 23 years old, and he was sometimes the problem is with some of these situations is the product of the offense they're in. And it's not your air raid offense. It's your Lane Kiffin offense. This is a different situation where he's in a Lane Kiffin offense where he's the number one read for Jackson Dart on damn near every single play. Like they have Juice Wells there. They had Colby Prescorn. They had Jordan Watkins, who was one of the most targeted, super explosive players in the SEC last year. And Trey Harris was the focal point. But Trey Harris as an overall prospect, yeah, he brings a lot to the table, but I don't think he has number one abilities. I think he has high-end wide receiver 2 abilities in an offense. And that's not saying like T. Higgins level, but even guys like Torrey Horton, I love Torrey Horton. I'm way ahead of consensus on Torrey Horton, but like you have to be real with yourself. Who's a comp for Torrey Horton? Well, look at the stats, look at the play style. Josh Reynolds was a very good prospect coming out of Texas A&M. Josh Reynolds went in the 4th round. Where's Josh Reynolds today? Right? Like he's the guy that came in the year after Mike
production here and there.
You got some production out of him, but Josh Reynolds was the guy that had 842 yards, 907, and 1,000 at Texas A&M in 3 seasons, and he was right after Mike Evans left. He got all them, went to the league at 21 years old, and he's 30 right now, and we haven't he just signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but like we haven't really got much out of him from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, we've seen okay runs from him that in spurts and filling in for injuries. And Reynolds is a bit, but you're mostly right.
Rams.
Yeah. And maybe the Titans or the Lions at one point had a little run a year or two ago. I wanted to go back to Trey Harris for a second and just I think what I like about him is he's just different than a lot of receivers. In what's that?
You don't want to stay on Josh Reynolds?
I didn't, but I didn't mind the comp though.
I mean, Rashad Penny, Josh Reynolds, Jesus Christ, Cody. I mean, but, I will say though, before we were going to stay on Trey Harris, but his best comp is Marquez Callaway. Like, this is what we're
talking about.
Play style, I mean, that's just based on their metrics, size, speed, athleticism, everything. Their play style can be different. So it's fine. But the bottom line is PlayerProfiler really struggles to comp these guys to elite players in this class. Mm-hmm. Really does. It's not easy. You really got to squint. Which is generally why I'm just out on the wide receivers. And it's just it's such a higher equity bet to just go running back. I've been talking myself into Noel and saying, hey, I might trade back into the second round to get Noel, but not at the expense of a second round running back. I need to get at least 1 second round running back. Maybe a luxury pick on a receiver, maybe this year, but that's it. Because this class, it's going to disappoint. Because we're at that point right now. Today is exactly March 31st. We're recording this. This is like the apex where after today, things will start to, people start to come to Jesus on some players. But man, right now, there's been weeks, months of just staring at these guys, man. Just staring at these guys, trying to see the best possible outcome. And that's what Cody's talking about. And in real life, when you talk to people, this is Trey Harris, probably not going to happen. I'm sorry, Casey.
Could. What I like about Trey Harris in this class is that I feel like he's a different style of receiver than a lot of this class kind of has, right? I think you can give him that like possession kind of receiver. And if he goes, we're talking about landing spots and, third round, if somebody like Sam Fran gets a hold of Trey Harris, he's got a chance of hitting, right? Like you just lost Debo. I'm not comparing him to his play style of Debo, but he can bring back a little bit more of that physicality of that offense. And that was what Debo did for San Fran for so long and gave him a calling card of. So like, if you can get Trey in those shorter routes, obviously he can attack deep. I don't think the speed that he tested with is the play speed. I think he plays faster than that. But he's great in a contested catch situation. Like just a big, strong, physical possession style wide receiver. I don't think he's a 1. I think he's an excellent 2. So, I think depending on who gets him and where he goes, I think this class is good, not great. There's some depth. I would disagree that there's, you get all the way through SuperFlex tight end premium. I mean, you can get all the way almost through the second round where you're still pretty excited to be drafting the guys, or at least I am as far as dynasty value goes. And that's, Jalen Royals coming in at the end of like a round 2, which I really like Jalen Royals. I think
you better add more taxi squad spots, man.
For what?
For all these receivers you're trying to draft in rookie drafts.
Well, I mean, when you're
still trying to draft receivers in round 3, round 4, you better have a lot of taxi squad spots and a lot of patience, probably infinity patience with a lot of these guys.
Yeah, no. See, I disagree. You got to just you have to go do the work and make the right calls. You don't have to draft them all. I don't want all the third round wide receivers. I want to do the work and I want to figure out which ones I want to take the shots on. I don't want to just be drafting willy nilly wide receivers all over the place. Of course, I want to draft running backs, tight ends, quarterbacks in those, but I'll still, over the last couple of years, there's been a bunch of third round wide receivers that you could go ahead and grab. And yeah, you might have waited a year or 2, but they worked out for you. And obviously Puka being one of the biggest ones, but Tank Dell had some shine. Tillman just got some shine. And those are just recent guys who had big roles, huge escalation in value. You can't be excited about every single
you got to know when to get out
receiver.
On these guys. They don't endure, so you have to be locked in to the trade market and be able to flip these guys as soon as they get that pop. Boom, you got to trade them, because you're talking about guys that had moments and are now meteorites headed back to Earth in flames.
Well, Tank Dell got very, very injured, so that was a
Tillman
bummer.
disappeared.
But, Tillman got a concussion.
Yeah, I still think Tillman's got a shot.
I love Tillman.
I think Tillman is a great little flyer, but he's a throw-in at this point, and I think he's a nice player. I think he's a nice player to go get. Absolutely.
Hey, man, Nico was viewed the same way for how many years, and it was
these are similar players. That's right. I love that. I love that comp. I like Tillman as a great buy low right now. I think that's something we should make sure that this show, in the description of the show, people know. Buy Cedric Tillman. Oh, what a great stash! What a great stash!
We've had you covered for that since November last year, so we, just listen.
Cedric Tillman, dude, absolutely. He's got a fantastic game. He's got a fun, fantastic game, and he's comp to Nico Collins. When we talk about Trey Harris, he is the definitive third rounder.
Yep,
I would put a lot of money on it. I mean, I have rarely seen a more third roundy player than Trey Harris. Not the last pick in the second round, not the first pick in the fourth round. He is a third rounder. He is the 30th of third rounders I've maybe ever seen. So I'm looking right now in the center, the dead center of the third round. And you mentioned San Francisco is picking at pick 75. Ooh, that would be nice. What about the Jets at 73? Get a redo on last year?
They could use one. But you're attached to Justin Fields is the problem.
No, it's not good.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. This is not good.
Right.
What about Jacksonville? They lost Christian Kirk.
Jacksonville's I'm down with that. I'm down with Jacksonville.
Jacksonville at 70. I like that. What about you, Cody? I think that's a good landing spot for him. Compliment. He is what he is. He's a better Michael Wilson to complement Brian Thomas.
That's technically, I think that's Gabe Davis's job right now, but I think that Trey Harris could compete with him and beat him out because he does carry a good salary. I like that 68 spot though. I like
68. I mean, is there a better spot than 68 to the Raiders?
I think that's the spot. That's the creme de la creme for Trey Harris right there, is to be the one in that offense outside of Jacoby Meyers. Obviously Bowers is the one, but you know what I mean? Like, he's the prototypical X, I think Trey Harris is. And that's the one spot that I truly believe that you could get probably the most out of Trey Harris the earliest.
And we can't let him go to the Browns because then that would totally nuke Tillman.
Yeah.
Harris and Tillman, and I would hate that. We don't want that.
And Judy.
Judy is whatever. Judy
and we don't have no clarity on who's throwing the ball at all there right now.
No, it's awful. No, it would be terrible. Right. I don't want Harris competing with Tillman. We just need Tillman to we need to convince the Browns somehow to just don't draft a receiver. Or if you're going to draft a receiver that's more of like a slot guy or a speed guy. But don't draft Trey Harris. Hell no. Too redundant. Vegas.
Dallas on the outside with CD.
Dallas would be nice, but I do think that the Raiders at 68 is the best. Cody, what do you think the Raiders are going to do in this draft? First round, second round, third round to make this happen?
Well, I tell you what, like, this is one that I just got done doing this. I've been doing these 7-round mocks on the draft ranking show on YouTube every morning, and I did the Raiders this week, and I got like so much pushback in the last literally 12 hours. My phone's been blowing up with comments because they're like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. DJ Glaze from Maryland's going to be our right tackle. And I said, listen, everybody wants to plug in Ashton Jeanty to the Raiders at 6 overall. We talked about, I don't think it's a bad process. I don't think it's bad, but I do think it's a bad process in taking Jeanty at 6 when your right side of your offensive line is not put together. I think you take Armand Membu, the tackle out of Missouri, at 6 overall, and you slide DJ Glaze down to right guard, and then you come back in round 2, and you realize that your offensive coordinator has 2, not 1, but 2 top-end running backs in this class, and you go, well, Chip, which one of those guys do you think best fits our offense? And if it's Travion Henderson, maybe you have to trade up 6-7 spots into round 1 to get Travion Henderson. And if it's Quinshon Judkins, you just sit still in the second round at pick 37 and you take Quinshon Judkins. Bing. And then when you get to round 3, pick 68, there you go, Trey Harris. That's like the nuts. That's the nuts
Judkins
for the
to
Raiders.
The Raiders. With an offensive lineman.
Dude.
Yeah, nobody likes when you tell you that. Yeah, but nobody likes when you tell you that your team is going to, take an offensive lineman in the top 10 to get it. Even though that's the play. That's where you should be starting, and you should be excited about the foundation of building the trenches. Nobody wants to hear it. So,
do you remember the play of all plays was the Lions could have had Jamar Chase, could have had Kyle Pitts, could have had Jalen Waddle. They said no, Penei Sewell. I mean, they didn't actually, because those guys went ahead of Penei Sewell. But that was the zone. Those were the 4 picks in that area, and everyone was shocked when Sewell made it to the Lions because they thought it would be Sewell and then Pitts, Chase, Waddle, but it ended up going reversed because so many NFL GMs they can't get off it. They just the shiny object, they can't get off it. But who's the team that's has the chance to win the Super Bowl? It's now the Lions. And the Vegas Raiders have been making the right decisions. I don't know. Do you think Tom Brady's influencing the decision making at all? Because somebody's influencing their decision making in such a positive way. That's the thing that gets me to doubt the Jeanty to Vegas mock.
Yeah. I don't think the greatest quarterback of all time has shares of the Oakland or the Las Vegas Raiders, and he's just sitting back and doing nothing. I'll just put it that way. I don't think he's just sitting back and doing nothing. That's 100%. He goes, "Hey guys, I won Super Bowls with who? Deion Lewis,
Jarvis Green Ellis."
Exactly. Thank you. Like LeGarrette Blount. Like he's like, man, we can do this later, but if you really want to, we can do it in the second round, man. I know you just won a national championship with these guys, but we're not doing this number 6 overall thing.
We're looking for the next Kevin Falk.
Where does Jeanty go then if he's not going to the Raiders at 6? What's the spots?
It feels like it's the Bears thing has got a lot of helium. You have the Cowboys at 12. The Bears are at 10. The Bears have been one that all these big heads right now want to talk about putting Amari and Hampton there. But if Jeanty doesn't go, if Jeanty, that's real talk. That's been getting mocked the last week and a half.
When you say big heads, you mean people that overthink things?
No. Big heads meaning like the biggest NFL draft analysts in the street.
Yeah, they're just bored at this point. They got to switch some shit up for a minute.
Yeah. Got to put trades in there.
I was thinking Galaxy Brain. I thought it was some kind of Galaxy Brain reference.
You got to get Omari and Hampton up to 10. You got to put some spice in there so you can get them. Not saying they're clickbaiting, but they're looking. You got to get some clicks now. It's draft season, baby. I think 10th overall I think 9th overall is kind of low key, just because the New Orleans Saints are so inept. And Kamara carries such a big contract. I think they can get out of Kamara and Carr this summer. And there's thought there. You take Jeanty at 9. I wouldn't do it. I'd take cornerback. The Bears at 10. They need to take tackle. They need to take Kelvin Banks or Will Campbell. But there's conversation for Jeanty there. 100% agree with that. The Cowboys, I think, quieted themselves by taking, it sounds putrid, but they took Javonte and Miles Sanders, which told me that they're going to kick the can to the 5th round because they have 3 5th-round picks, and they're going to kick the can and they're going to shoot they're going to shoot 1 or 2 arrows at the running back position in the later rounds.
So they're not getting off this philosophy that they've developed, which is correct, that you can win like the Patriots for so many years with guys at running back. It's impressive. This was the big test for me. Is can they watch a team in their division, the Eagles, go acquire the biggest name running back in free agency, win the Super Bowl with him, and he's the big reason why, even though he wasn't, and look that in the face and be like, no, we have conviction in our process, in our evaluation, and in our positional evaluation system. So, no, we're going retread running backs in free agency and 5th-round running backs in the draft. I mean, if they do that, man, much respect. Much respect. I think they deserve it, too, because it is tough. The fan base wants Jeanty. If Jeanty is somehow available and they pass on him, I mean, he's not going to be. But if they would have to, fans will
That's
be
the problem.
upset. That's improbable. It's not going to happen. The question is exactly like Hampton, right? So now the Hampton, will they take Hampton? Is that the big question?
I don't think so. I think that if Jeanty was there, I think it's probably – here's the problem, though. Like I'm talking about this, and I'm going pick by pick. You go Vegas, you go New Orleans, you go Chicago, you go Dallas, and you go, well, I can understand it. I could see where they could be coming from to do it. Wrong process for the Raiders, wrong process for the Saints, wrong process for the Bears, wrong process for the Cowboys. And when does it stop, though? Who's going to make the mistake? I think one of those 4 teams does make the mistake. I'm just not sure he makes it to 12.
In a rational world, based on how much Ashton Jeanty can actually help your team, would Jeanty in the most rational world fall to what, Pittsburgh at 21?
20. Denver
at 20?
Yeah, Denver. I think Sean Payton would move up if he started falling past probably the Cowboys. If he got past the Cowboys, I think Sean Payton would probably be looking to move up.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Yeah, I mean,
what about the Patriots at 4?
You don't want to know my thoughts on that.
Well, Theo floated that on the last Sonic Truth podcast,
and I yelled at him. And I wholeheartedly don't believe in this because there's so much need. You need edge rusher, you need tackle. You have Drake May there, and I understand the thought of getting a run game in there and Mike Vrabel being the alpha and all this stuff, but when you have a quarterback and you find your quarterback, to me, it's you got to find him a weapon on the outside or you got to find him a tackle to protect him, and they need both. And the thing with Jeanty is what we talked about in the last show was when you go back the year before Vrabel got to Tennessee, they drafted Jack Conklin like 8th or 9th overall, came back in round 2, got Derrick Henry, and that was the right process. And I agree with you. New England needs a running back. But when you look at what the Cowboys did that year, taking Zeke, and they could have taken Ramsey and then came back and got Henry. They took Zeke and then went and got Jalen Smith, which was looked at as a reach at the time because he had such a severe knee injury. I think the right process wouldn't be to go Jeanty, and I don't think that they will just because I think Vrabel understands that.
Didn't he have drop foot? Yeah. Wasn't that what Smith had, a foot injury?
I think he completely obliterated his knee in the national championship game or something like that.
Okay.
And they were like, dude, this guy might not play football again. And he was
it was a dicey pick. That was a real fringe upside play that they did there. All right. We have a Mike Vrabel story we want to run by you, Casey. And the funny thing is, I was all set to ask Alex, and I did, on the Content Kings podcast, ask him about the Mike Vrabel story. And we set it up, and we talked about the whole last time that he saw Mike Vrabel and the times he's interacted with Mike Vrabel. And then we got distracted, and we started talking about, of course, Arch Manning, because I'm obsessed with Arch Manning. And so then once we started talking about Arch Manning, because Les Snead was talking up Arch Manning at the Texas Pro Day, ultimately we never circled back to to have Alex firsthand telling of the Mike Vrabel Uber story. We're going to get into it. I want to have Cody retell it on this podcast. We're going to tell it in every podcast. It's just, I want to hear it again. It's just it's really not that interesting. But it's just, I just want to hear him say it again because it made me so happy when he told the story last time. So every Sonic Truth episode, we're going to hopefully just retell the story. We'll get into it after this. If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with SuperFlex and tight end premium controls. And a Dynasty League sync, where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams, and then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs, and then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that, plus the rookie guide, $25 value, is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code, and you can bump up to All In and get $25 off. That's right. Code Podfather gets you $25 off the All In package. Mike Vrabel was at the Combine in Indy and was getting into an Uber. And what happened, Cody?
Generally when you get into an Uber, right, you walk up, you put your big bags in the trunk or something, and you get in the back seat, and you just kind of, personally, I just put the headphones in and zone out. Mike Vrabel puts his backpack in the back seat, gets in the front seat with nobody. He had nobody with him. It was just solo dolo. He just gets in the front seat, and he's the alpha of the situation. He just gets in, and I'm co-pilot now.
He jumped in the front seat of an Uber. Why do I think that's so funny? I don't know why. I could just imagine an Uber driver being like, oh, hello, because Mike Vrabel's so big.
Very large. Yeah.
Right? So to have someone that big just shock you by just jumping it, because I'm sure it doesn't happen, open the passenger side door, and I wonder what they talked about. I'm sure he was talking him up. Did you talk to Vrabel at all in Indy or ever?
Well, I peacocked him a couple of years ago at the Combine. Well, he was on the phone because it's kind of funny because he was actually on the phone, and it was like right when I think like Will Compton was doing something on his show. He's talking smack about him on the Bussin' show or whatever. And so we were walking, and we just kind of passed each other, and I was like, I don't even remember what I said to him. I was like, Will Compton said hi, and I just like blew up like this, and I just like walked past him because he's massive, right? And Compton just messes with him all the time. But I've never really talked to him though. No, he usually takes his media. You're hit or miss on the media availabilities at the Combine.
He's an interesting guy, man. These alpha guys, I enjoy their presence. I'm just not that guy, so I just like being around that guy. It's a fun situation. And so Patriots, it's a great landing spot for wide receiver. In your mocks, your 7-round mocks, are you putting a wide receiver down early second round in New England?
Actually, I don't even remember what I did in my last mock for the Patriots. I think in round one I gave them you know what? In round one, this is where I've gotten actually the most pushback from both Alex and Maddie is I put Hunter or Kelvin Banks at 4, and nobody likes the Kelvin Banks thing. And I always get the you're a homer, even though I'm not a Texas Longhorn fan. Patriots, I gave them Travis Hunter, Ariante Irsary, the tackle from Minnesota, in the second round. And then the third round, we just talked about it, that next pick, 69 overall, I gave him Trey Harris.
Oh, so that's where you had Trey Harris going.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Wow. But do you think most people are putting a wide receiver to the Patriots at 38?
I think if a Burden or a Igbukah makes it there, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
One of the scuttlebutt has been that Tet and Matthew Golden are the two clear-cut guys that are going to go in round one. Everybody knows that. But that only one of Emeka Igbukah or Luther Burden will go in round one. And not both, maybe neither will go in round one. So more than likely a Burden or an Igbukah will be available, within those first 6, 7, 8 picks in round two. And I think I used to have the historical first receiver taken in round two list, and it was like T. Higgins. There's a list of guys that it's a pretty good hit rate for that first receiver taken in round two. And if it's the Patriots, if it's Burden, I would love that. But if it's Higgins, I think I'd be indifferent. Given Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, who I still think both are going to get an opportunity. I think he fits well. Jaden Higgins would fit well in that offense inside of Stephon Diggs, or on the opposite side of Stephon Diggs. I wouldn't love it, though. I think I'd much rather push down to the third round and get a Trey Harris or even a Jack Besh from TCU.
Casey, we need to be careful, Casey.
Okay.
We need to be careful. What could happen, and this is my fear in day two, is that we're on all these streams. All these fantasy guys are now live streaming the draft. You're welcome. And we look up, and we're like, wait a second, it's pick 41. There hasn't been another receiver drafted. Wait, it's pick 45. Wait, it's pick 50. Wait. And it's just tumbleweed in the second round. There's running backs going. Certainly, there's going to be running backs draft. Talk about Judkins, all these guys. But maybe not even that many running backs. Because there's a dead zone after the Ohio State running backs. You've got Caleb Johnson. Then after Caleb Johnson, who is it? It depends on the team. I'm sure that some teams love RJ Harvey, or some teams love, who knows? I'm sure there's some teams that love Martinez. Who knows? Right? So that you could see this dead zone playing out where the second round could be a dead zone. And I'm not worried about it really for the running backs, because I think these running backs are undeniable. And if for whatever reason the NFL just, I would wait for the third round to get the running back. I think a lot of people will. A lot of front office GMs will. I think it's a big deal. Be playing a game of chicken. The third round is stockpiled with running back, I want them all. I'm fine with it. But for receiver, it's gonna be telling. If the NFL likes like a couple guys, they like Golden, they like McMillan, and they're generally out on this class, and they all fall to the third round, that would be bad.
I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening. I think if Igbukah and Burden are hanging around and nobody wants to take him in that first half of the second, somebody's going to be interested in trading up to get those guys. We can talk about how it's not special.
I know Igbukah and Burden are going at the 1-2 turn. We know that. But I'm talking about that's where the dead zone starts.
Yeah.
Sure. After Igbukah and Burden, we're assuming Ayo Maynor, guys that we've been scouting and we love, like Jalen Knoll, like that these other receivers are going to come in and fill out the second round. This often happens. Some years you get twice as many receivers, sometimes 3 times as many receivers drafted in the third round as were drafted in the first round. But this year, I worry that it's like end of the first, Burden goes, beginning of the second, Igbukah goes, and then it's just, it's nothing.
I think your one player at those two positions is Caleb. I think Caleb Johnson has real merit at like the Bears picks there. I think they're at 39 and 41. But outside of that, like I think you're nails at receiver. I think you could see a big drop. And then at running back, like outside of Caleb and like Judkins in the early part of the second round, I think you see that big drop. And I think what opens the door for is a position we haven't even touched on today, which is tight end. When you go back to the 2023 tight end class, it was Laporta at 34, Mayer at 35, Musgrave at 42, Schoonmaker at 58, Brenton Strange at 61. That's sort of your window here for tight ends in this class, where Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, Harold Fannin, and a lot of people like Terrence Ferguson in the NFL circles, that's 4 tight ends that could put themselves right in that gap in the second round.
Yeah, and they're like, well, we need a receiver, but we also need a tight end. Oh, Eureka.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just grab Arroyo. Ship it. Casey, are you out on these receivers yet?
No, I'm not out on. What I will say is, I agree with the sentiment on, after those 2 guys, I think Trey Harris is in the mix probably for some teams other than others, maybe a late second, early third. And then I think basically the only other 2 guys that I'm really, I think Higgins is going to go. Higgins seems like, I think the NFL draft community seems pretty locked in that Higgins will be a second rounder, like Green Bay or somebody along those lines. You see a Jaden Higgins go.
Hope so.
But, really what I would say is like Royals is one of the only other guys after Trey Harris that I'm like, yeah, I definitely want that guy on my team. I don't really care kind of where he goes, what the draft capital is. I don't think he's going to get out of the 4th round. I think he's really good. And right now we're seeing him like at the back end of second rounds in Dynasty SuperFlex drafts, and I'll take that all day long. Like I think Royals is really, really interesting. He was on his way to an awesome season this past year, had the foot injury, I think 800 yards in 7 games, was really, really on a tear. Also kind of like sort of my kryptonite of receivers. I like guys that are good with with balls in their hands. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah. But he can win vertically as well. So I think he's got a lot of parts and pieces to his game. I think you can deploy him outside or inside. So I think he's versatile. Other than that, like guys like Besh and Ayomanor, I think Besh is a fun receiver, and I think Ayomanor is a fun receiver. They don't really move the needle heavily for me, but I don't mind them. Other than that, what you could talk about Noel a little bit, but I guess I'm looking at it from a perspective of I think there's some good guys, not great, but there's 3 or 4 other ones that I'm interested in. And then that's kind of my point going back to like, do the work, find the guys that you like, and don't be interested in all of them. Yeah. If we get to the end of the 4th round and Ricky White's still available, I think Ricky White's interesting. I'll take him in the 4th round. Right. But that's kind of my thought process on him.
When another two receivers we haven't talked about, we haven't touched on, and inside the first 3 rounds that I've gotten a lot of information about Bond and Savion Williams in round 2, not just round 3, but round 2 for Bond from Texas and Savion Williams from TCU. Savion is the, Cordero Patterson of the class. I really wish he would just, I think you said it on a different show the other day, but basically just take on the Cordero Patterson thing and just full-fledged go to running back and do the damn thing. Because I think from an evaluator standpoint, I grade him like 3 times higher as a running back than I do as a receiver. And I think that's one of the things, like you said, your kryptonite, like that's one of the NFL's kryptonites, is just an overall, God as an athlete, and that's Savion Williams. And then Isaiah Bond, who, ran a 4.4 flat at the combine, ran a 4.39 at his pro day the other day. But when you look at the play style, it reminds you a lot of Jalen Waddle, and only one of 2 players to run 24 miles an hour at the combine, him and Xavier Worthy. And I know the 4.2 didn't show up for Bond, but the 24 mile an hour ran up or showed up, and the GPS is something that the NFL teams take into account. So where do you see like a Bond and a Savion from a dynasty perspective? Because we haven't talked about them at all. And if they go in the second round, you look at those guys in like keep trade cut circles right now. I don't even think they're in the ballpark.
Yeah. So Bond, for what we're like, Bond goes way higher than he's a back end of second rounder in our ADP right now, SuperFlex tight end premium. So typically like 208 to 212, we see Bond. Ooh. Savion is a flyer that gets taken, I think the NFL is going to have to put fantasy guys on to Savion, at least not us, but like the larger community. If he gets the capital, people will, and I think the NFL is split too. They're either in or completely out on Savion Williams.
Just takes one.
Seems.
Cordero Patterson was the 29th overall pick.
Was who's the guy from Jalen Hurd? He never got.
Oh my gosh! Yes,
San Francisco.
Yep.
Neck injury or something. Was that?
It just takes one, guys. It just takes one. So that's the way. Like, that's the way it could happen. That you get a Bond, you get a Savion Williams, which a lot of, the metrics-focused dynasty analysts are not as high on as the NFL is. Just like those people are not as high on Matthew Golden. Right? So the roster watch guys like Matthew Golden. Some of the metrics guys, like on this channel, the Undroppables, Jax Falcone, out on Matthew Golden. How about you, Casey? Where are you on Matthew Golden?
I would say that I'm probably not in if he's going. Let's put it. It's going to be all about cost for me. If he's at the back end of the first round, I'll take him. As far as dynasty drafts, I'm not putting him up there with that. You got to get all the way through Egbuka and Luther Burden for me to take Golden. I think there is more of a projection with him than those other guys. Analytically, of course, just didn't get the run and doesn't have the numbers. You saw in chunks, if you were watching him, he was excellent when they kind of turned to him and leaned on him through this run, through the playoffs. I think it's very much like, I don't want to say Savion Williams, but people are either very in or out. I'm kind of middled on him. I'm not hot and heavy. If he's hanging around in the back end of the first, I'm not making any moves to acquire the Golden. I'll take him if he falls to me. He's not a trade up guy for me. Good, obviously faster than we thought. I heard McShay the other day kind of soft comp him to Tyreek Hill, which seemed awfully wild to me. So,
whoa, hold on. Right now, FastDraft Origins needs one. And Carpentier is in there now with a turbo mode order. Casey, you should jump in right now. Do you have your phone?
Yeah.
So Casey right now is going to live draft. You just tell us who you're getting. You can just tell us what's happening. And you'll be in that draft with Cody, with Cody's rankings. So Cody's going to be drafting with his rankings in absentia. So you can also tell us who Cody's drafting at a particular pick, and you can tell us who you're drafting.
All right.
So that'll be fun. I want to see what happens. What's interesting is in Origins, one of the bigger disparity players where in Dynasty rookie drafts, SuperFlex, this guy actually goes a few picks later than he goes in Origins, and that's Shedeur Sanders. So Origins, he'll often go 105, 106, and then you'll see these rookie drafts that are SuperFlex where he's slipping. He's slipping past the top 4 or 5 running backs. Like, for SuperFlex drafters are not convinced on Shedeur Sanders. Should they be?
I like Shedeur more than consensus, I think. SuperFlex wise. I don't know. I for some reason he gets knocked athletically. I think he's plenty athletic. I think he can move around. I thought he did a good job of surviving without a great offensive line throughout his career. I think he's extremely accurate. He seems like, situations aren't too big for him. He's been kind of bred into this. The arm strength is, I guess, the big concern, but I mean, I've seen him make all the throws that are necessary in the NFL. I think people get a little too caught up in some arm strength here and there. As far as NFL goes, I don't know where you stand on him, Cody. As far as the Origins draft goes, it says I need 6 more for what I just hopped into.
Oh no, you missed it. Did you miss it?
I try. I gotta try. As fast
you
as
can't be serious.
Somebody in the chat definitely scooped you there.
Oh my god! Somebody came in. Oh my god! You didn't get in.
I tried.
Somebody scooped you.
I thought it, dude. This is the problem with FastDraft is that I'm like, oh my god, we should do this live. We could do it live. Well, the thing is, the chat. You guys could fill this draft. It's probably gonna fill between now and the end of the show.
Yeah,
so
I'm in there.
The chat can get in there and draft with Casey. He's waiting to draft. Unfortunately, I thought we had it timed perfectly.
Oh, it was almost there. You
were like, what? So you got? Oh man, wow! Someone just jumped into the passenger seat and drove off with that draft.
Yeah. With Shedeur, also not afraid to take the hit. Maybe takes too many sacks, some could say, but he will stand in there and fire the ball and get it kind of where it needs to go. So I don't know how you I would say after the big running back run of this, I'm kind of fine with Shedeur anywhere after that point. If it's tight end premium, I'm taking Warren. And then, Shedeur can mix in there with Burden and Ibuka and Golden for me.
Or trade down.
Or trade down.
How about trade down? Isn't trade down better?
Yeah. I like Shedeur. I think that you could tell the same story similar story about, like I talked about with the running backs, where you could say this guy's the, Quinshawn or Travion or Omarion would be the RB1 in the class in a couple of years. You could tell yourself that. I fully believe that Shedeur, we could look back in 5 years and go, why did we just overlook this whole situation? And that it's not normal that we get a quarterback that is so obviously progressed and ahead of his time as a mental, how am I trying to say this? A mentally strong quarterback that has been through so much and has proven that he can process at an elite level. And when you think about and you evaluate the quarterback position, it is the 100% toughest position to evaluate for NFL teams, evaluators, TV analysts, doesn't matter who it is. It's the toughest position to evaluate. And it's because you don't know really generally what's going on inside their head. You can look at Cam Ward. That's my kryptonite at quarterback, and Matt knows this. It's like you can love Pat Mahomes, you can love Malik Willis, and you can love Will Levis. They're all projection quarterbacks with arm talent, right? And if you don't know what's going on mentally, or you don't know where they're going to land, it's a lot harder to project. And with Cam Ward, he kind of fits into that. But with Shedeur, as long as he doesn't get nuked by like the Browns and you get into a spot where you're like, man, this offensive line's falling apart. They don't got a lot of money to spend and it's just a bad spot. Like if you get him to the Giants where he's got a Malik Neighbors, I think that's actually a more positive landing spot. Raiders too, whatever. But that's a quarterback.
Dion doesn't want to go to the Browns.
I don't think anybody wants to go to the Browns, but I think do you think he could block that? I'm sure he could, but I don't think he will.
Okay.
I think that he's had those conversations and he's come out lately and said more things that are more neutral, where he's not trying to completely Archie Manning this thing. I think he just understands that maybe the quarterback landscape and people wanting his son is a little more volatile than he initially expected, where if one team doesn't like him and he, says, I'm not going here, it could cause him to fall into like the teens, and that's a real thing. So I think he's kind of taking a half step back on that, nor do I also want to go out there and have my words be said that I think he's being a dick in the whole thing. But I think the Shedeur Sanders in all is one of the most progressed quarterbacks mentally that we've seen come out the last 5-6 years. And I 100% believe he could be successful in the NFL. My question for both of you, I guess, is in dynasty terms. I know we're talking about where he's going off in SuperFlex, but in like overall dynasty terms, I'm assuming you both have rookies plugged into your dynasty rankings at this point. I know Matt does.
Yeah.
Where did you put him next to in the overall dynasty rankings at quarterback?
So yeah,
I feel like
on FastDraft, by the way, FastDraft he goes 5th overall. He goes 5th overall because I think quarterback, it's just raw. It's raw fantasy points. So a quarterback is going to outscore other position players. Now, obviously, Jaden Daniels did last year, but who was the other guy you wanted in the first round last year? Bo Nix, right? So that's people are chasing. If they can't, hey, I can't get Cam Ward or Ashton Jeanty or Marion Hampton. I at least want the Bo Nix of this class, and so that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get some production out of quarterback, because if he's going to start most of the games for his team in year one, as long as he's a quarterback scoring whatever it is, 15 fantasy points a game, that's going to be a hit on FastDraft. Whereas in Dynasty, even in SuperFlex, this is my QB3. I'm not going to get nearly as much utility out of him as you would in FastDraft, which is the reason for that. Now, in our rankings, our SuperFlex rankings, we have Shedeur Sanders at 9, because even in non-tight end premium, we prefer Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
So, and then you have Ibuka's right there. I think personally it's so close. There's like a 3. It's all adjacent.
Hang on. Are you talking overall dynasty quarterback rankings or just overall rookie rankings?
Rookie
That's
rankings.
what I was talking about.
Sorry, I meant rookie rankings. I think rookie rankings are very tough because it's really what you want. If you really need a receiver and you want a receiver, you can go Igbuka. You really need a quarterback, want a quarterback, go Shedeur Sanders. You want a tight end, go Tyler Warren. Want a running back, go Caleb Johnson. It's choose your own adventure at that particular point in the rookie rankings, and that's why we have the lifetime values. So you can see that these two guys have almost the same lifetime value, even though they're ranked differently. They're all clustered in the same kind of tier where, Cam Ward is like a whole other tier up from those guys. And then the running backs are even a tier up from there. In the overall rankings, so let's look at the overall SuperFlex rankings at quarterback. So if we had Shedeur Sanders
Anthony Richardson or Shedeur Sanders?
Here it is. Drum roll, please. QB 24.
Okay, I'm in the ballpark.
I think that makes sense. He is exactly QB 24, which is why no one's that excited.
Anthony
Richardson or Shedeur Sanders?
Shedeur. I've moved. I love Richardson, but I've dropped him a lot.
I'd probably go Shedeur there.
How about Shedeur or Will Levis? Or Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold.
That's a good question. I don't like Sam Darnold, but yeah, we actually have Shedeur ahead of Sam Darnold. Yep, and we have Bryce Young ahead of all those guys.
As you should.
Bryce Young's coming, man. Bryce Young is coming. He's an exciting one. I think that the Carolina Panthers have to be, even though they took a receiver at the end of the first, aren't they a good landing spot for a receiver with Bryce Young? Because Bryce Young is a pocket passer.
But the problem is they've thrown that, they've shot that bucket how many times now? They shot it on Mingo. They shot it on Leggett, and they hit on Coker. It's like, well, maybe do they go the Kansas City route with running back, and they go, we're not very good at it. They're in the top 50. Why don't we just hold off and use these middle round picks? I don't know, but they definitely need some receiver help for sure.
2 more in this FastDraft draft. The draft room needs 2 more, Casey.
I'm in. I'm waiting.
I know. I'm just saying. I keep seeing more people joining. The
Yep,
code, by the way, the code is FFD. He's in there. The code is FFD. Sure. You get a $50 deposit match. Code FFD on FastDraft. Start drafting rookies now. And this thing closes. It's exactly 50% full. Well, it's exactly 50.4% full. So we passed the halfway point before April. That was my goal. Get to the halfway point. Sometimes these things just manifest, man. I'm like, we got to get this thing half full before April. It's March 31st, and we're just over halfway full with Origins. I think we're going to fill this thing. And we are going to be doing maybe a special rookie draft tournament on FastDraft during the actual draft. It'll be called Origins Chaos.
Oh, I love chaos.
Right. So it'll be Origins Chaos. You can draft these guys as they're being selected by the NFL draft. You can see the values will be changing wildly. ADPs will be super volatile, and it'll be fun. It'll just be a fun thing to do. Why not? We'll do a little mini tournament during the draft. And we'll be doing a lot of drafting at the draft house. So that's fun. So yeah, we're just tracking the. Dougie Fresh just joined. Dougie Fresh from the chat just joined.
He's on the squad.
There's one more. Dude, I'm like shaking. Like who's the last person who's gonna join? You got all these guys in the chat.
I got Devin Neal, Jordan James, Brashard Smith, and Torrey Horton Jr. Torrey Horton as my 4 highest rostered players, my most exposure.
Oh, your highest exposure. Say it again.
Devin Neal at 52%, Jordan James at 41%, Brashard Smith at 35%, and Torrey Horton at 35%.
Well, Cody likes Torrey Horton, and I like running backs. So
yeah,
you're doing great.
I can't stop drafting Brashard Smith there.
Why?
Like the 4th round.
Cody, what's your evaluation on Brashard Smith?
I like him.
It better be good.
Listen here. This is one thing that Brashard Smith is one that I don't talk about a lot for a reason. And Casey just kind of hit on it. He likes him a lot. I'm very middling on him, just as I was a year ago with a running back that he reminds me of. A guy that's good out of the backfield, Brashard Smith, obviously a former wide receiver at Miami, transferred into SMU when the coaching staff went that direction. And he's a guy that's going to go off probably in the 5th round, 4th round. If he gets a landing spot, I'm going to be drafting the hell out of him in dynasty drafts because this has got Bucky Irving written all over it. And I don't like to be the guy that goes, this year's Puka Nacua, this year's Bucky Irving. And that's why I don't talk about the guy because I just don't want to say that because I don't like to be that guy. But when I get asked about him, I think Jax Falcone asked me on the show the other day, what do you think of Brashard Smith? And I was like, I'm not going to tell you unless you ask. You asked. I'm going to tell you. I think he's Bucky Irving 2.0.
Yeah, I think when you get in the fast drafts for me or any league really, I look at guys like Brashard Smith who could catch some passes when you're later in there, or the guys who could score touchdowns, maybe like a Raheem Sanders, a late fast draft pick. I'm looking for touchdowns and catches out of the running backs, out of the late round fast draft guys, and that's where Brashard Smith really comes in. And really, I think he can get a role kind of right away.
Well, early 4th round. If he goes early 4th round,
I think you can do a lot of different things with Smith, and I think he's a pretty good runner for only been playing, that position for a season.
It is interesting. These guys had an inside track on him. They knew him from Miami. They knew he would be a great running back if they tried him there, and then sure enough, bang! Like that's what a great success story for self-scouting, and for just college recruiting, college coaching, and college recruiting kind of coming together and getting the most out of a player and then setting him up for success at the next level. What would have happened to him? Had he not transferred, he would not have got drafted.
Yeah,
that's what can happen to these guys. It's a damn shame. Look at Cordarrelle Patterson, still in the league, man. You love to see that. You absolutely love to see that. And, oh, man, this draft is about to go off. We got one more spot to fill here. Oh, my God. So, okay, let's look at the actual NFL draft board. Day 3, beginning of the 4th round.
We're in. Cody's got the first pick.
Oh, dude, look I'm telling you. You mentioned this on the stream. Bing, 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 bing. People are just jumping in.
I'm up 2.
Okay, so
sorry.
Pick 103. We know the Cleveland Browns have a lot of needs. Okay, they may draft Shedeur Sanders in the 1st round, and they have a lot of other needs. We talked about wide receiver being a need. What about pick 103 for Brashard Smith? Brashard Smith, that actually can be the thing that saves Jerome Ford. That'll let Jerome Ford retain more value than if they went like DJ Giddens, something like that.
I actually like Brashard Smith more than DJ Giddens. So
same.
I think it's a good spot.
But you think that an NFL team would play him like Bucky Irving, like as a primary back?
I'm not saying they won't.
Well, I don't. Whoa, also, the NFL. The NFL. The Bucks weren't planning on doing that. They've much as said like they just couldn't keep him off the field. He was just undeniable. Is essentially what they were saying. I don't think that was. I think they were looking for him as a role player, and then he came in and just kind of took over, which is very much in the skill set of what Brashard Smith can do. And I think that's kind of what Cody's alluding to of why he's kind of putting him in that realm.
Buck. The thing about Liam Cohen, who's now the coach of Jacksonville, they asked him about the running back position at the combine. And he's like, dude, Bucky, he's like, I know it's cliche to say this guy shows up at 5:00 in the morning. He's here every day. But he's like, Bucky Irving as a rookie was dude, he was in here every single day, 5:00 in the morning, getting ready, preparing. And he just like Casey just said, you couldn't keep him off the field. And again, I haven't talked to Brashard Smith. I don't know if he's wired the same way as Bucky, but from a prospect on the field, this guy almost had 2,000 all-purpose yards last year. He took 235 carries. Bucky had 207 in the NFL this year. I'm not saying it's 1 for 1. What I'm saying is when I say the Bucky thing 2.0 is that if he lands in a spot Tampa's also got a top 10 offensive line in football and a good receiving core and a good quarterback and a very competent, above average play caller and offense. Like those things all come into account here. But I think Cleveland can get you there. If their offensive line is healthy, it's one of the top 10 offensive lines in football. They don't have a quarterback for hell. Their wide receivers are underwhelming, but their offensive play caller is pretty solid. So I could be sold on the landing spot. I don't
upgrade over Pierre Strong, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong is like it's a fine two dudes behind there. Like, Sean Tucker was behind Rachaad White too. It's like it's a poor man's version of what went on last year in Tampa.
We have a FastDraft update with the 101, with the first pick in the FastDraft draft that is happening right now as we're talking. Cody Carpentier selects Cam Ward. Cam Ward, quarterback, Miami. This can happen. This can happen. There are drafts that go off with no Jeanty at the 101. And with the 102, look at this dice roll. With the second pick, Casey Meyers selects Ashton Jeanty. Moving on to the second round. We're now into the second round, well into the second round. And we have at pick 19, the 209, Casey Meyers selects Devin Neal. Carpentier comes right back over the top with Ollie Gordon. Gordon, okay. Question for you, Casey. You had Neal already at 50% rostered.
Uh-huh.
Did that impact your decision-making at all? Are you trying to wind down your exposure of Devin Neal? Clearly not, I guess.
I was going to take Sampson if he was there just for that reason. But then if he wasn't there, I like Sampson and Neal are kind of in a tier for me. I think those guys are – I love Devin Neal. I think all he's done is just production at the college level, and then came out and had not a great combine, which you kind of expected, which doesn't change anything for me. You just need to get a spot where he can get an opportunity, and I think he's an excellent player.
Bad news for all you guys. I know I like Jalen Knoll, so you guys aren't going to get him. He's gone. RJ Harvey goes with pick 23. Sorry, Cody. And sorry, Casey. Brashard Smith goes to Dougie Fresh at pick 25. Sad day.
Yeah,
sad
that
day.
was a bummer.
You're not getting all the guys you want, unfortunately.
It's usually my go-to.
How about
but we do have an update. At pick 29, Casey Meyers selects Elijah Arroyo. And at pick 30, oh, man. Alex and Cody are of one mind with this guy, Jarquez Hunter. Jarquez Hunter. Do you have any thoughts on Jarquez Hunter, Casey?
I can't say I'm too deep in the Hunter game. I do recall from a few years ago when was Zach Evans there with Hunter?
Tank.
Yeah. So no, I don't mind Hunter. What do you like about Hunter? I'll take the scouting report.
He's sort of this year's, I'd say, Marshawn Lloyd. Better built, more stocky throughout the lower quarter. Hard, just a bowling ball of a runner. Did it all 3 years at Auburn. This is a guy that, Alex will say this too, but we both work for Orange Bloods, so we're in the Texas Longhorns sphere, and every single Wednesday for about 3 hours, we get on a call with all these SEC coaches, and they all get asked about their upcoming opponent, and every single week, without a inkling of difference, every single coach was like, well, with Auburn, it starts with stopping Jarquez Hunter, and he's the back, and that's the focus. And now that might say a little bit about Auburn, who, again, they have one of the best receivers in college football in Cam Coleman, but they were focused on stopping the run because this is the veteran that the team was built around. I think if you like Marshawn Lloyd last year, you have to like Jarquez Hunter this year, or your process is bad. This is a prolific, hard-nosed, grindstone runner that in Jarquez Hunter that I think can have success at the next level, and will go somewhere around 4, around 5. Kind of around the same areas like you brought up with Devin Neal, Trevor Etienne, things like this.
Cody, you got Jack back.
Really? I just moved him up a little bit.
Yeah, that's why you got him. And Casey got Tyler Shuck.
How do you guys address the quarterback position if you don't have Shedeur, Jackson Dart, or Shook, right? It's 4th round too early for you,
Shuck?
or is
it Shook?
I think it's Shuck. Shook.
Is it shock or shuck or shook?
It's spelled show. Shaw.
So we don't know then.
I think it's called. I think it's shook. It's Tyler Shook.
Shook. Okay,
Yeah,
shook me all night long.
He's right. Yeah.
All right, it's not shook. Shook me all night long. Got it. Pronunciation fixed. So there's no need to draft a quarterback. You don't need to draft any particular position. You could draft 6 running backs.
Right.
Well, Alex would tell you need to have a quarterback.
Alex, yeah, I know if Vrabel were drafting, he would need a quarterback. Vrabel would need a quarterback and 3 tight ends. That's what Vrabel would do. I don't know if we lost Casey's camera. There, he's back.
Yeah, sorry, had to change the battery. Sorry about that.
Raheem Sanders, nice job, man. Ty Felton for Cody Carpentier in round 5.
Yeah, that would have been my backup. That would have been my 602 was Ty Felton. I like him out of Maryland. He's got some speed, got some versatility, got some yak ability. So I like that Felton snag late.
This year, round 5 and 6 are so much more talented than last year. There's guys like Ty Felton you know are going to get snaps. You know they're going to produce. Lots of these running backs, like LaQuint Allen, you got Casey Meyers. Nice job, buddy.
Yeah, Ty Felton might be a nice Arizona Cardinal late field. Maybe you can stretch the field a little bit.
That would be a better use of draft capital for Arizona, absolutely. But yeah, this year there's so many guys that, or they played on national championship teams like Donovan Edwards, like Cody drafted there at the 601. Just lots of guys are going to get roles. They're going to produce coming out of round 5 and 6, where last year it was disgusting. It was like Vele and I don't know. It just was so bad. Go back and look at who was being drafted after pick 40 last year in rookie drafts. Really, really, really bad. So in rookie drafts, if you're in SuperFlex and you have the 110, 111. Have you traded that pick, Casey, at any point so far this offseason?
I have not.
Are you considering letting it go in some of these leagues? Because it's not great.
Like I
said, it's not great. There's a big gap where you could essentially move down from the 110 to the 210, and it wouldn't be that big of a gap.
I think I would disagree slightly there because I think if Luther Burden and Mbuka are kind of around, I think those guys are a tier above, the Higgins and the Royals that you would be wanting there. So you're tier dropping. I'd probably do it more so for a veteran presence, especially if I'm picking that late in the draft, means I'm probably in contention. So, I grab some ADP right here and
see if you can see some trades that have happened. I'm interested in trades that have happened recently in Dynasty for like the 110, 111, 112. Because the way I'm seeing it in SuperFlex, once Caleb Johnson is off the board for me, Caleb Johnson, Tyler Warren, I would happily take Shedeur Sanders. I'm not saying don't draft Shedeur. I like Shedeur Sanders in SuperFlex. If I could get him at the 109, you got to push the button on that for sure. But then like I said, it really flattens out. Golden is, less than a coin flip to hit. Same with Burden. Then you're into Loveland. Then you're into Aoman, or then you're into Dart. And so, Cody, what do you think? What's the breakout percentage in your mind for Jackson Dart?
35%.
Yeah, that's my problem. And you're down into Dylan Sampson, guys you like, but you can get those guys at the end of the second. So it's just,
I don't know that you're getting Dylan Sampson at the end of the second in rookie drafts. I don't think you're getting Devin Neal at the end of the second in rookie drafts. I think you got to be in the middle.
Well, in SuperFlex?
No,
because Dart is going to move, and Dart is going to be in there, and then
Dart with capital, but he's still already floating around like 2-1, 2-2. So like he might move up into the first, but then that's going to push Loveland or somebody else down if we're talking tight end premium. And look, I'm going to take
tight end premium.
Sure.
Arroyo's going to move up. You're definitely going to get these guys in tight end premium because Arroyo's going to move up, and then that will be. And then I don't know. See, I don't know where have you Milrow? Where do you think he's going to go in rookie drafts in SuperFlex?
For me personally, that'll be for obviously all the rest of the quarterbacks outside of dart. It's capital, of course, but then like especially like a Milrow or a Ewers, like who gets a hold of them, right? That's going to be whether or not I want them or not. Because if somebody whose system and development gets a hold of them, even if the capital's good, I'm out, right? But if somebody who we know, let's say Chip Kelly and the Raiders take Milrow second, like he's somebody who I think might be able to get the best out of Milrow, right? Obviously, we've seen San Francisco and Minnesota be kind of QB whisperers with the Canales, as maybe on the other end of things. Those jobs are locked up right now, but like that's what I'm like. If the Rams take Ewers, I'd be very interested in Ewers, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
love that.
That's what's going to turn the tide with the quarterbacks for me. Right now, I'm like, I don't even care about them. All the mocks, I skip right over them. And I don't know how confident I am in Shuck either, right? People are really steaming him up right now. It seems a little wild, but they're talking Cleveland skips quarterback on the first one, takes Shuck top of the second round. That's that. What and then what? Just start Kenny.
I thought it was Shook.
I'm going Shuck, but
it's now we're to Shuck. I thought it was Shook me all night long. What about I like Milrow. So
fantasy wise, of course, you got to like Milrow. There's
Cody, talk about Milrow. There. Where do you want Milrow to land? Where can he land? Where could this be a good pick?
Can I tell you the galaxy brain that I fell into like last Thursday talking to Alex about just this? Is because the one thing that Sean Payton told us was like he's like, I want a joker in my offense. And everyone's brain goes right to like Colston Loveland. They're like, man, Colston Loveland, 20 overall, that's the spot. And then he goes out and signs Evan Ingram, and we got these local beat writers in Denver going, Evan Ingram's his joker. Now what are they going to do in round one? I'm like, well, first off, Evan Ingram's not a joker. He's like almost 30 years old. That's just not what he is. He can hardly stay healthy being him. I go to Travion Henderson, a running back that can catch the ball in the backfield, that can protect, that can run the ball like hell, that's got dynamism. And then I'm talking to Alex, and I go, like the real joker was Taysom Hill for that offense. And I go, I know it's like you're not allowed to say, hey, this quarterback needs to not play quarterback, but Milrow has not taken the steps that like a Jalen Hurts did, because Jalen Hurts was questioned coming out of college. It was like, hey, this guy might need to play running back at the next level, right? Listen, Milrow to Denver as the joker running the football in like the third round, kind of maniacal, but I just fell into it last week, and I just was like, this would be the ultimate just Sean Payton move in like the third round, 85th overall. Milrow's there. He's like, you know what? I'm going to put him in this room. Zach Wilson just left. He went down to Miami to back up Tua. I had him as my backup last year. I can put him behind Bo. I can groom him a little bit, let him play some running back, just move him all over the formation. Like the one thing we know about Milrow, and the one trait is he's dynamic as hell. Sometimes you can't hit the broadside of a barn, but he's dynamic as hell. So just get the ball in his hand, just like Taysom Hill.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.